What's going on, you guys? I have not spoken about the Raiders for some time, but I figured there's been some time now, and I can just get these thoughts off my chest just because for the sake of mental health. So, a state of the Raiders, the thing I've been doing every year, or at least say something about them. Where are they now, and what's going on since? Well, we know what the Raiders went, 6-11. Another boring season that was predictable, where they'll blow it, they'll just be boring, they don't know how to put a team away. There's just a mess. And all they were good for, okay, if you want me to say something positive, I could just talk about fantasy football. If you had Josh Jacobs on your fantasy team, or if you had Devontae Adams on your fantasy team, that was pretty much what they were good for. If you had one of those two guys on your fantasy team, they put up some numbers. Especially Josh Jacobs had, I think, the rushing title this year, so good for him. But what's the point when you're not winning games? That's the problem with being a Raiders fan. And I don't feel any reason for optimism. We try to tell ourselves that this team's close, this team's almost there, and you're going to say, oh, they had all these close losses, but when you're playing the way they are, and it's not like this is just bad luck, one bad bounce, one tip drill, one bad play away. No, this is a combination of bad plays in the fourth quarter, bad play calling, bad execution. They are not a good team. Most of the time we've been seeing this team, and I've been arguing for a while, is that they play a 57-minute game. Football's 60 minutes. They just run out of gas before it's too late, or they don't game plan properly for 60 minutes. Now, the Raiders have done historic things of blowing double-digit leads. Usually they would just sit on a 7-point lead, but now they're going to sit on a 17-point lead and just let it blow up right in your face. When you look at all these losses this year, and you can't even point to one loss that's the worst because there's like 5 of them. Whether it's because they blew a 20-point lead to Arizona, whether they blew a game against Jeff Saturday, who never coached a game beyond the high school level. That's pretty embarrassing. I don't know about you. They gave up a long run to Matt Ryan, where he's never had a long run in his career, but he does it as an old guy with the Colts. They lost to a Baker Mayfield team, Rams team, where Baker Mayfield played. He literally practiced for like 3 days. He was picked up off the street in the middle of the week, and they found a way to blow a game there. They also have blown games where they got shut out by Dennis Allen and the Saints. Oh, no, I don't know. Dennis Allen used to coach the Raiders. I don't know about you, but that kind of hurts. Greg Olsen used to coach the Raiders, but he was part of that Rams team. Oh, Todd Downing, too, by the way. Todd Downing was on the Titans, and they got outcoached by Todd Downing, our old coordinator. Yeah, all these little things add up. It's all the little things of how you're going to blow it. More recently against the Steelers, where they couldn't score and put a game away against a bad Steelers team, where I don't care that they had a winning record. They weren't good. If you want to tell me you're a good team, you got to play a 60-minute game, and you got to learn to finish. You can't just play this close stuff and look for a lucky play like that Patriots one where, the player tried to he tried to lateral and throw across, and Chandler Jones was in the right place, right time. No, BS. This team's not good. And this team will not be good for a very long time, as long as Mark Davis makes these questionable hires. I said it the moment Josh McDaniels was hired, and I've said it again. I don't have faith in him. I try to give him a chance. I try to say something, but I don't like trying to be the Patriots. I've said it before, and I say it again. All these guys, when they work for the Patriots, and then they try to leave the Patriots and try to be like Bill Belichick, they're terrible. They try to pretend to be tough guys. They try to pretend they're leaders and good, but most of the time they're terrible on their own. The track record's very clear. The most recently, the Detroit Lions fell for this trap with Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn. Bob Quinn was the GM. He traded away Darius Slay, and we've seen Darius Slay now on the Eagles, who's actually been a very good asset for their secondary, Darius Slay. More recently, of course, the Houston Texans have tried to be the Patriots, and Nick Caserio, I think he's still their GM. What have the Texans done that have told me under the Patriots model? What have they done in the past? Scott Pioli. They had a bunch of ex-Patriots on the staff with the Chiefs, and Scott Pioli was a big failure as well, trying to be, once again, you try to be the Patriots, but you can't be them. You can try to, but once you're away from Bill Belichick, these guys are terrible. And here's the problem with Mark Davis. He's tone deaf. We've seen this before when there was the I can breathe tweet, if you all remember that, when that happened. He just said, oh yeah, it's my fault. I didn't know better, whatever. He just took the bullet. But he's tone deaf now, not just because he's hiring the last two hires have been the head coach and GM at the same time. Let's see, he goes with Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler, who were from the Patriots. Then he went with John Gruden before that. I mean, that's stupid. You're supposed to hire a GM and let the GM make his own decisions. The only credible hire Mark Davis has made was Reggie McKenzie. Everything else after that, I mean, Reggie McKenzie hired Dennis Allen. That's not a Mark Davis thing. Reggie McKenzie hired some other guys. That's not his decision. Mark has hired his buddy and John Gruden, which is idiotic. He was washed up for 10 years. Made him the GM, where he's drafted quite a few busts, like Jonathan Abram, like Alex Leatherwood. Nice going, Gruden. Yeah, a lot of these picks have not panned out. You've only hit on a few guys like Crosby and Miller, but in football, you have to draft more than 4 or 5 guys that are worth keeping long term. A lot of these Raiders guys are average to boring, below average, and there's nothing interesting about them long term. They might have some running backs, some guys who can run, few individuals who can run block. Part of the offensive line looks good when they can run block, but pass block is just okay. This drafting by Gruden has come back to bite this team, and it's also putting faith in Derek Carr. Now, I'm not here to talk about the Derek Carr debate, but I think most of us have turned on Derek Carr for a while now. He's just not good, and you're out of excuses. You had Davante Adams as your guy. You're still playing terrible. You're playing scared. I mean, we can talk about coaching and stuff all we want, but under John Gruden, I didn't see the improvements under John Gruden. I turned on him since 2019. I said the Raiders needed to move on from him, and here we are 3 years after that. It's blown up in their face. Derek Carr is just average, sometimes below average. He doesn't suck 100% of the time, but it's not enough. This stuff of excuses, it goes out the window. In a year like this, when you have Josh Jacobs on your offense, you can hype up Darren Waller all you want. You had Davante Adams brought in. You're out of excuses. You really are out of excuses. And the defense isn't good, but there were times that the defense played well enough to win a game, and they were on the field too long, which gives them a lot of points, makes them statistically look worse. And Derek Carr is a lot to blame for just having 3 and outs. I mean, that's part of the game. His favorite weapon is to throw a cute fade and hope for pass interference. That's all I watch when I think about Derek Carr, is throw a fade and get lucky. I don't see anything smart about Derek Carr when he's throwing or when he's playing scared. Fine, you can talk about certain efficiencies, but it's over. For me, it is over when it comes to Derek Carr, and it's been over for 3 years, and it blows up in your face that you held on to it. That's on John Gruden. John Gruden never drafted a quarterback the whole time. You got a lot of fire under your ass, and it never happened. So Mark Davis. You know what's also funny and tone deaf when I speak about what's being tone deaf is all those opposing fans that take over Allegiant Stadium. I mean, it's boring. It was the most predictable thing ever, as we all knew opposing fans were going to do this. If you didn't know that opposing fans were taking over, I don't know what to tell you. That's what Las Vegas is. It's a tourist place. Everyone's going to show up. Let's fly to Vegas, watch a game, and be entertained, and pay for our other shows and gamble, whatever. That's what Vegas is. People are just going to fly in for their team, and that's it. I mean, it wasn't just your typical top fan bases like the Niners coming in, but I remember when Washington came in 2021, and there was more maroon in the stands than silver and black. That's how bad it is. When Washington fans are showing up, and we know that they don't even show up at home. They're boycotting their owner for the most part. But when they're showing up in Vegas, you know it's bad. And Mark Davis acts all embarrassed and terrible. And yeah, it's on you, buddy. You didn't know that? You made some dumb hires? Let's hire a Patriots assistant? Let's hire a head coach and a GM, because let's give the head coach GM powers. Let's not hire a GM. It's pretty stupid. This organization is in the dumb category again and back to being a mediocre laughingstock where being an average team is just whatever. That's their ceiling. It's not fun. Don't give me this they went 10-7. They have to win a playoff game for me. You can't just be fluky and win lucky games and show me that you're good. No. Josh McDaniels has shown he was 6-0 when he first started Denver, but we all saw that was a fluke in hindsight. What has he done? He's done all these close games and close play callings, and nope, they can't finish a game. It's just nothing that tells me that they're going to be good as long as Josh and Ziegler are there. You can make one hire and change the culture of a franchise. It is possible, for better or worse. But under this regime, I'm not trusting them. They're just going to draft another bust. They're just going to coach another bust, or they're just going to have a bunch of average players that can't get it done. I look at this roster, and there's maybe 4 or 5 guys that I want to keep on this team long term. A lot of these guys can go, or they're not going to be good for maybe after 2 years. They're not going to be good. There's just nothing interesting about this roster. They're all just playing for a job elsewhere, and there's not much interest I have in this Raiders team. You got to be winning. This is 20 years without a playoff win. And if you look at the other teams who have a long drought, the Dolphins, they made the playoffs this past year. They're kind of average, but they competed, to their credit. You didn't see the Raiders compete as much as the Dolphins did. The Detroit Lions, they have the other long drought, but you saw the way they played under Dan Campbell. They may very well make the playoffs next year if they can learn to get their crap together. The Raiders, on the other hand, trash. You're still trash. You can say, oh good, we're not the Broncos because we're not stuck with a washed-up Russell Wilson. We're not stuck without a first-round draft pick, but what are you going to do when those first-round draft picks become busts or when they become little? I don't know, guys. But I don't see a reason for optimism until they get a hard reset. They need a hard reset. They need a new GM. They need a completely new overhaul. But Mark Davis is too embarrassed to have opposing fans in your own house, and it's all your fault. You have to be winning. You can't just hire your buddy and John Gruden to think that's going to bring butts in the seats. I don't know. You can talk about a businessman. He's making money. I thought money's all he cares about, not opposing fans. But if he's really embarrassed about fans taking over Allegiant Stadium, you might need to learn to get smart with winning. Maybe you need to learn how to have football operations people. I mean, I don't even know how much advisors he had when he hired Gruden or hired McDaniel. What kind of football advisors were telling him this? Because at least there were people that told him when they hired Reggie McKenzie. We could yell at Reggie McKenzie all we want, but at least he had a resume that made sense. Just going off what he did, his body of work. I don't have issues with that hire. Everything else after that Mark has done, trash. I've said it before, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. John Gruden, look at where this team is. And I'm bored. I'm not excited. It's just a place for opposing fans to take over. Until told otherwise, I'm not excited for Raider football. What's the point? You're not good. You got to win, and you got to win more and convince me you're winning, not just in fluky manners. Let me know what y'all think. I'm just not excited for Raider football. That's how the state of the Raiders is right now. I mean, I don't see promise. This is the Chiefs' division until told otherwise. I'll talk about the Super Bowl later this week, and I'll ask for your opinions, but that's my thoughts on the Raiders. See you next time.